I cannot think of anything you can do in your community that draws people together as much as sports seems to do. I was here when the Blazers won a championship in '77, and it was unbelievable what it did. Strangers are walking down the street hugging each other. And it just goes to show you how unified everyone was. There were like 1 million people on the streets for the parade. This was something that all of Portland could take pride in and be happy with. I go back to the 90 and 92 Trailblazer teams. They're in the NBA Finals. And I'm telling you, this city was on fire.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, it was on fire. Tell me what else has got this city on fire, other than setting it on fire for demonstrations. But there's really nothing like it. That's why people believe in sports as a quality of life issue, as something that's good for a community.
You're listening to The Brian D. O'Leary Show, your sanctuary for serious content in an unserious culture.
Welcome to the Brian D. O'Leary Show. Today I'm joined by a true legend in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from, and sports journalism. We're talking with Dwight Jaynes, and around these parts, he's affectionately known as the Godfather of Portland sports media. Remarkable career spanning over 5 decades across print, radio, television. Dwight is a 5-time Oregon Sports Writer of the Year and an Oregon Sportscaster of the Year. Started at the Oregon Journal and then onto the Oregonian and then onto various radio and television spots around Portland. And now you can follow his work on Substack. And Dwight has chronicled the highs and lows of Portland sports. And I'd say an unmatched insight over these last, Dwight, 50 years or so. He's covered the Blazers since they're...
Yeah, who's counting?
Yeah, right. At least in '77, which I wrote about few days ago, and written a couple books, and has been passionate about bringing Major League Baseball to Portland. So, Dwight, to speak with you today. Reconnect.
My pleasure to be on with you, Brian. Thanks for the opportunity.
I want to talk first about Blazers. Personally, after about 2020, I can't really watch the NBA for all sorts of reasons, but it's been interesting over the last, week or so that the Trailblazers franchise has gone up for sale officially, something you and everybody really has predicted since Paul Allen died in 2018. So can you start first with your connection to the Blazers franchise?
You know, I covered them. They were my beat for 7 years. Prior to that, I had done some sidebars on Portland games. I actually did a sidebar on the game where they won the championship in '77. But I took that team on in the '80s, and then later on transferred from the Trailblazer beat over to what we had at the time, the NBA beat, where I covered everything but the Blazers pretty much. And then after that became the daily sports columnist, which I did for, I think, 7 or 8 years before leaving to go to the Portland Tribune.
Yeah, we remember most every day your picture in the black and white up in the corner on the front of that sports page. Read it every day.
I don't know how you put up with it.
Let's see. There's been talk, or there was talk, 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. Phil Knight put in a bid, unsolicited, for the Trailblazers with probably other folks. That sounds like it's not going to happen, at least with Phil Knight. Do you think it's important, though, that we have in Portland a local ownership group? The one criticism of the Allen regime is that they were up in Seattle, and I know you've written and talked a lot about that over the years. And then are there any potential suitors locally that you know of, or you don't have to name them by name, but that would be interested in purchasing this club?
Well, let's kind of start at the beginning, if I can, Brian. The Blazers have never had local ownership. In fact, our 99.9% of our professional sports teams in Portland over the years have not had local ownership. You talk about teams that you would think would have, including the
Yeah.
Portland Beavers, the Portland Winterhawks, teams like that. Uh, they've not had local ownership. Now, you could say now the Timbers do, but that's only because Merrick Paulson moved to Portland when he bought the Portland Beavers and the Timbers. So you can call that local ownership. I don't look at it in that manner, but my thought is I would not expect, in light of all those facts, there to be a local owner. It takes, I would say now, a multi-billionaire with a B to own one of these franchises these days. We have a very few of those, and the ones we have don't appear to be sports fans because we haven't seen much sign of them over the years. Now, Phil would qualify, Phil Knight, but Phil has already publicly said he's not interested this time around. And facts that I have been made aware of have reinforced that he's definitely not interested at this time. Um, I don't know if he had, the offer they made was less than half of what it would cost now to buy this team, given the way the franchises have exploded in value.
Yeah, he put in a bid for what, roughly 2 billion a couple of years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
The
2.2.
Celtics just sold for over $6 billion. The Portland, well, I call it the Rose Garden. They call it the Moda Center now. It was a new building. I still think of it as a new building, but it's 30 years old.
Yes.
And the Fleet Center or whatever it's the Boston Garden, New Boston Garden, is almost exactly the same age and looks very similar from the inside as the Rose Garden. But I think in Portland anyway, they probably will need a new arena. I mean, the old Boston Garden was there forever and it was all rickety. But in Portland, you have it's an outdated building. So would they have to build a new stadium, new arena to accommodate this sale?
Well, Brian, my information and my own personal thoughts on this would be that yes, it is like I think the second oldest or oldest building without a renovation in the league, and it does need to be renovated. The infrastructure isn't adequate now, and plus it's just out of date. Arenas are like cars. The longer they go, the more little things, accessories that are added over the time. And this building doesn't really match up to some of the new buildings. Now, I would also say if I were the buyer, and of course that's absurd, but if I were the buyer, I would definitely want to relocate, not out of state, but to the suburbs. And I think that is a logical expectation. I don't like the location of the Moda Center now. At the time, it was fine, but we've seen traffic problems on that interchange between I-94 and I-5 become a serious problem, particularly on game nights. Also, the neighborhood isn't good with the tents right across from the MAX train right there. And there are many reasons. If you're going to build a new one, I don't think I wouldn't even invest money in renovating what's there now. I think I would go ahead and think in terms of building a new one. And I do know from my experience with the people in the MLB to Portland movement, the suburban areas around Portland are dying for something like this. They've seen what one of these Major League Sports can do for a suburban area. And most people are aware of what's happened in Atlanta, where the Braves went out of town to Cobb County and gone to what they call the Battery now. And it's been a huge success. People are copying it all over sports, football, baseball, basketball. They all want to get in the real estate business where you get the arena, but you also acquire the property surrounding that where you can put your retail stores, your hotels, your restaurants, your nightclubs, anything else that would do well surrounding an arena, and create your own entertainment district and live off the real estate profits more than you would the team.
We were promised in the 90s when they built the Moda Center or Rose Garden. and it never came. They had Dr. Jack's, and that's about the only thing they put in there. And it was more
Well,
seeing
Brian,
before that.
yeah, but when it opened, Brian, it was full of
Sure.
all sorts of other things. There was a what they call Friday's Front Row sports bar,
Right.
which closed at midnight, did last call at about 11:15, which after a game isn't very adequate. And
Right.
then they had the Italian place, and I can't recall the name. The whole chain of them is no longer around. I can't recall what it was, but they were there, very successful on game nights. Other nights, nothing.
Dead.
They had the hot dog place that was there, and they might have even had another place. But the fact is, those places were all put in with the front of them facing the arena, so that when you drove by on the street, you wouldn't have had any idea any of those places were even there. They still wanted to charge you for parking a lot of the times, whether there was a game or not. People weren't willing to do that. And free parking was too far for somebody just going there to have dinner or something. It was doomed from the start in terms of creating an entertainment district. Now, there was a proposal at one time by the people who did the LA Live district near the Staples Center, now crypto.com or whatever they're calling that. But that was turned down by the city. They didn't want to do that, which was probably a mistake. But you have to have property acquisition. You have to have enough property to do it right. And that's why I believe suburbs is what's going to happen. And given, I think, the difficulty of dealing with this city in terms of new construction, that's probably wise because I think there are a lot of problems right now building things in Portland. Now, we might learn from some of the things that are going on now, like major skyscrapers being for sale, but we'll see what happens. But Brian, that's just my, off the cuff predictions of what I see ahead. And I talk to enough people. I do think there's one local person interested in this deal, but he does not have the money to do it, and he would have to put a group together. And I think almost you would probably see you're going to see a group of people no matter what. I just think it's going to have there's such a large sum of money. Even if you did have enough money to do it yourself, you might want to spread the risk or the profits or the debts over a group of people. And right now they're letting hedge funds get involved in things like this. So, and I've said another thing, Brian, all along, and I believe this. I've lived it. I've seen it. You might think you know the person who's buying this team, and that person is going to say all the right things when they are right there with the money hanging out to buy it. Just like coaches, when you name a coach, he's going to run. He's going to play exciting basketball. He's going to, it's going to be great. It doesn't always turn out that way, but they all know exactly what to say. And I think the owners are the same way. They're going to tell you that they're for the fans. They're going to make it a great fan experience. It's going to be fun, blah, blah, blah. We're going to try and win. We're going to spend whatever it takes, but we'll see. And it takes a little while to know exactly where that owner stands.
And I'm worried about that for Portland fans. I guess I still consider myself one, but the NBA has soured on me a little bit or a lot over the years. What is the any thoughts on the ground? I think there's a concern of Portlanders and longtime fans of the Blazers that it might move to Seattle. The franchise might move to Seattle. Is there any possibility that that is the case?
Well, Brian, I wouldn't say that there's no possibility. I think it's a very slim possibility. They're going to get an expansion team up there, and there doesn't seem to be any doubt about that. It could happen. It would not be a wise move for the NBA to let that happen. But on the other hand, I don't know these days if the NBA could stop it. The NFL, as powerful as it is, couldn't stop Al Davis from moving the Raiders all over hell and gone. And they tried in court and everything else, and they couldn't do it. But I think Portland's a good enough basketball town with such a rich tradition that moving it elsewhere would not probably be a very good move.
Still to this day, tradition. We've had a ton of ball players come out of Portland high schools and Oregon colleges and stuff. I'm wondering if today it's as vibrant of a culture that we had once upon a time. I wrote in my article that I was born right before, a couple months before Portland clinched the title. And I grew up in a Portland that revered those days.
Yeah.
Absolutely revered. It was a part of the culture. My dad, he was at the game. My uncles, my older cousins, they were huge fans, passed it on down. And kids that I grew up with, whether they were born in 1976, 77, 80, somewhere in that range, they knew about it. They knew about this tradition that we had. And those Jack Ramsey teams of the late 70s, early 80s that you can read about in Halberstam's book, but that was the culture around here. And it died off I want to say about the time you started in the 84 or something, right in the beat. But then it picked up when we got Drexler and Porter and all these guys. That took them a few years, but they were contenders for the world championship for years.
Yeah, one of the saddest things I've seen in my time on Earth is the total disregard of history and tradition in today's world. There's there's not a lot of people who seem to care or study or know anything about what happened before they could see what happened themselves. You see all these people saying, well, he's the greatest player in history. But what they really mean is he's the greatest player they ever saw. There's no regard for, there was this guy named Wilt Chamberlain who averaged 50 points a game, once scored 100 points in a game, and also impacted the game at the defensive end. But no one even wants to hear that. They don't want to hear from me or anyone else because they don't even want to consider that because they think things are so much better nowadays than they were in the old days, so to speak.
Speaking of tradition, we may shift gears here a little bit, but knowing you for a while, our mutual friend, one of your best friends in the entire world, Mike Clopton, I got to coach with him for a few years. And I would say you are probably more, even though you're known for basketball, you're probably more of a baseball guy from what I know of you.
That's true, Brian.
Would that be fair?
Yeah, that is true, definitely. I mean, I coached baseball at Portland State for a while. I was an assistant coach, coached the junior varsity team, and baseball was always the sport that I would get in a car and drive all the way to San Diego to see a team play if I had to. We grew up, Mike Clopton and me and a guy named Tom Trebelhorn.
Right behind you, as I see.
He was once, the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers and Sporting News Manager of the Year one year, and also managed the Chicago Cubs. We grew up together, all three of us. Ironically, all three are now in the Oregon Sports Hall of Fame, each for a different reason. Me for media, Mike Clopton for his great high school coaching. He's one of the best in the country. And then Tom Trebelhorn for his success as a Major League Baseball manager. So we would get in the car at the end of summer and drive to California and watch Major League Baseball games all the way down south. We'd stop in San Francisco, then we'd go to LA, Dodger Stadium, Anaheim, San Diego. And we would do that. We did it for years together. And it was great fun. But and even now, the money I've spent meeting my son in places like Cincinnati, Atlanta, Washington, to see games there. And all these people, by the way, who say, well, if you bring baseball to Portland, it doesn't add to the economy because people are just going to take money that they would spend on going to a movie or going to a play and spend it on baseball. Well, that may work for some people. The fact is, it would keep my money at home. I wouldn't have to go to Seattle, LA, San Francisco, Atlanta to see Major League Baseball. Plus, those teams have fans who would come to Portland to watch their team play. It's happening more and more. Our world has shrunk. People do this for Oregon football games, Oregon State football games. They do it for all kinds of sports. I know people who are Blazer fans who want to see a game in every other arena in the league, and they've just about done it in some cases. So, yeah, sports brings money into the economy. There's no question about that. But anyway, getting back to my original point, I was a baseball guy. That is my sport, and that's why I've been so involved in trying for years now to get this going with bringing Major League Baseball to Portland, because there's no real reason that we don't have it, except that this is Portland and people always believe it couldn't happen. Trust me, I was here before the Blazers came. You should have heard the negativity about that. Number one, they're not, NBA's not coming here. Number two, if they do, we're not going to be any good. Number three, it's not going to draw people because this is a college basketball town. We have the Far West Classic and the Ducks and the Beavers, and that's all we care about. We don't care about the NBA. I heard all of those things. People wanted to give you many more reasons why it wouldn't work in Portland than why it would. So I'm a little bit immune when I hear all the same thing about baseball. I think baseball is a grand slam in Portland. It would sell out almost every game.
You think? I thought that for my entire life until I don't know. I think when Paulson came in and did the thing with the stadium, Civic Stadium we're talking about, they renamed it PG Park and renamed it a couple times since then, but Paulson comes in, buys the Beavers, gets an expansion MLS team and the Timbers, and people go bonkers for this Timbers thing. Meanwhile, I grew up going to Civic Stadium and watching the Beavers with, you say, 150 people in the stands. I know a club you used to work for as a boy.
I did.
And I always thought that, yeah, Portland has such a strong baseball culture, going back to what you're talking about and your wonderful coach and my friend Jack Dunn, who influenced tons of kids in this game. But I saw when Paulson came in, like, maybe it isn't. Maybe we aren't ready, or maybe it's just the politics that are involved that push baseball to the edges. But we've had the Oregon State Beavers win 3 national titles.
Yeah.
Since
Well, Brian,
there is hunger there.
the success of a minor league team in a city has virtually no impact on
Okay.
whether or not a major league team would be popular or would succeed. It never has. It didn't in Denver. It didn't matter there. It didn't matter in San Diego. It hasn't mattered in many of the cities where it's gone. Miami for sure, and it hasn't really worked in Miami either. But the fact is, you have to have a committed owner who wants to bring them here. Now, the baseball group, I believe they have that person, again, an out-of-towner, actually a group, I believe. But without that, it's really tough. And then the big barrier for years was our local government, either the state government or the city government, not seeing the value in it. I mean, think about this. And I actually testified in front of the state of Oregon House of Representatives Finance or Revenue Committee a few days back. And I tried to tell them, virtually every major city in the world, not just the United States, sees the value of sports for its community and undertakes the task of financing and building sports venues, whether it's outdoor stadiums, indoor arenas, hockey buildings, basketball buildings, football, baseball, whatever. They have them all over the world, and they have them in this country. This state of Oregon never does it. And I mean never. Memorial Coliseum, a ballot measure that barely passed for about, I think it was in those days, like $6 million to build Memorial Coliseum. Barely passed. They built it. Find me another arena publicly financed in this whole state. I don't think you'll see one. Now, Hillsborough did a great job, and they saw the value. That thing in Hillsborough is a gold mine. It's a gold mine for the team that plays in it and for the city of Hillsborough. They've got things going on in that stadium virtually year-round where the Hops play.
And they're going to rebuild a new one.
And so it's always bothered me. And now there's this big fuss about, well, is the city and the state going to be protected under this jock tax that the baseball group wants to have? Well, the matter of fact, they are going to be protected. But what would be wrong with you guys just throwing in a few bucks too? It's going to, I mean, can you imagine something like that new going in Portland downtown? What it would do to revitalize this poor city? I mean, we need good things to happen here. That's what we need because
Yeah.
it's been an avalanche of bad things.
Certainly one of the reasons I'm not living there anymore. But you mentioned the Blazers possibly moving out to the suburbs. Now, I know the Portland project, it was in the news. This was months ago or years ago. They purchased or had under contract some land, maybe in the entire Progress Downs Red Tail Golf Course.
Yeah, the golf course out there is at Red Tail. Um, I think the city has wanted to sell that property for a long time, and they are going to. And I think that group is going to buy it and probably turn it into some sort of a combination of retail sale, but also have some of the buildings for the baseball team there. I don't really know what's going to happen with it because I'm not as concerned with that as I am the actual ballpark itself down on the waterfront. But the waterfront piece of this whole thing is going to be very dynamic. And the whole idea of maybe parking on the other side of the river, people either taking a MAX train, a bus, or just walking across that bridge over to the ballpark, that's pretty cool. It's a lot like what Pittsburgh has with the Clemente Bridge, where they close that bridge down on game days and people park on one side of it and then walk across to the ballpark. Beautiful setting. So I think that's the plan in the future. But the fact is, too, the city, I believe, has purchased the arena from the Blazers, or there is an agreement to do so.
I read they did that in 2024. The Blazers sold it for $1, and they sold the land underneath for $7 million.
Well,
seems like a drop in the bucket.
I think that there's a real misconception about arenas now. Somebody wrote to me and said, well, now the Blazers aren't going to be able to incorporate the arena in with the team when they sell, so it's going to be worth less money. Well, the fact is it's exactly the opposite. The teams very often in this situation with an old arena, they don't want to own that arena. It's going to be a money pit. They don't want to do it. It's like the Memorial Coliseum now. The city saved that as a historic building. It is going to be such a drain on the city for years because it just can't make back enough money to pay for all of the upkeep on it as it ages. And how long they expect that thing to stand there without needing major treatment is beyond me. I have no idea. But I think it's the same way with the Moda Center. If you sell it to the city, you're off the hook for making major renovations. Now, I know they've agreed to do some things. I think this summer they're putting in a massive new scoreboard. They're doing some other things, but there's much bigger renovations that should be done there that maybe an owner of a basketball team doesn't want to do.
The arena part went bankrupt already when Paul Allen owned the team, and a third party owned it and he got it back. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. Getting back to baseball, Dwight, Portland's chances, I think, is an expansion team we're looking at for any possibility. You got Salt Lake, Phil, maybe Charlotte or Montreal are in contention. Where rank Portland's possibility of getting one of those probably two slots?
Well, there will be two teams added. There's no question about that. What I've heard is there'll be two in the East and two in the West. And the idea being that that would leave one of the teams to be either Salt Lake City
or two in the East and two in the West.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Well, there's two teams basically in the running in each spot. And there'll be one team added in the West, one in the East. And so what you're looking at is, can Portland present a better case for that Western team than Salt Lake City can? Well, the people in Portland believe they can. And I think if all things are equal, absolutely they can. First of all, the ballpark is so much better than the schematics I've seen and the renderings I've seen on the one in Salt Lake City. Second of all, that's getting to be a kind of crowded sports market in Salt Lake now. They already have the NHL there, and they have a major college football team in town too, which Portland doesn't have. So, you think that the one in the East is going to be, I think Nashville has a lock on it, but they're going to say Montreal, they're going to say Charlotte. But Nashville's kind of had a head start on everybody. They have a group together, although they don't have an owner yet, as far as I know. So my guess is Portland would have a really good shot. And the long-term plan, as I've heard it, is for baseball to realign at that time. Instead of having two leagues, what you do is you go to 4 8-team geographical leagues. This helps you with the Players Association, who has a right to object to anything almost now. But here's the West Coast League, which is going to be the old Pacific Coast League. Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Anaheim, LA, San Diego, and Phoenix, whatever. I don't know if I counted 8 or not.
Yeah.
But the idea being regional games, which the players would love, much less travel, much less. And then you have some sort of interleague play where maybe you play all the teams in the Midwest one year, all the teams in the outer east one year, et cetera, so that you do get some form of interleague play, but you don't play everybody every season. And I think that would be beautiful for baseball to go to. It would make the playoffs more fun. It would just, and geographic locations for divisions is the best.
And you have the American League and National League, when 70, close to 100 years, they were different. They were different things. They were two leagues.
Yeah, right.
Now they're the same. They're just under the umbrella of Major League Baseball. There's no difference if you're an American League or a National League anymore, particularly now that the rules are exactly the same for both leagues. And so I think, yeah, the natural evolution is probably going to this geographic model, go from there. But you need 16, I think, really, in each league now to have 32.
Well, if you expand in Portland, if you take 2 teams into baseball right now, it'd be 32 teams. So you have 4 8-team leagues, which would be beautiful. Now, in the NBA, people ask me all the time, well, if they put in Las Vegas and they put in Seattle, that's 2 Western teams. What are you going to do with that? Well, they've got that planned out already. They can finally make sense of the fact that New Orleans is in the Western Conference, and then either Minnesota or Memphis shouldn't be in the West either. So they can balance it out much more correctly if they do 2 new West Coast or Western teams.
Even in the 70s, when you're covering the Blazers, the Bulls were in the Western Conference, for crying out loud.
They were for a while, yeah. Well, the year the Blazers won the championship, they had to play the Bulls in the first round, and that was a 2 out of 3 series that went pretty hard. That was a hard series.
So let's see. You talk a lot about the culture of Portland, history of Portland. You already mentioned it here. The impact of sports in Portland, particularly baseball, you typically get the argument that doesn't make economic sense. It doesn't make economic sense for the state to build the arena. It doesn't make economic sense for them to tax these guys. You got to just do it. And there's something to be said from my experience, and probably yours, I want to ask you this in a second, of the passion of the fans, like we had with the Blazers for probably 50 years or so or more. I don't think it's there now, but again, I haven't lived there for a while. I just don't think it's as strong. It's been losing since we lost against the Lakers about 25 years ago. But do you think that the cultural impact is more important than the economic impact?
I certainly do, Brian. And I think that's why you've seen cities all over the world building these venues. I cannot think of anything you can do in your community, locally or nationally, that draws people together as much as sports seems to do. I was here when the Blazers won a championship in '77, and it was unbelievable what it did. Strangers are walking down the street hugging each other. And I mean, that's not the end result that you're looking for necessarily, but it just goes to show you how unified everyone was. there were like 1 million people on the streets for the parade. This was something that all of Portland could take pride in and be happy with. Now, you don't always win a championship, but those years when the team was good, and I go back to the 90 and 92 Trailblazer teams, they're in the NBA Finals, and I'm telling you, this city was on fire.
It's unbelievable.
Yes, it was on fire. And tell me what else has gotten this city on fire other than setting it on fire for demonstrations or whatever. But I mean, there's really nothing like it. And that's why people believe in sports as a quality of life issue, as something that's good for a community. And, we've seen it with Duck football. What does that do for all those fans of Duck football when they're playing in the national championship tournament or they're in the Rose Bowl or whatever? It's unbelievable. And we saw it when Oregon State won national championships in baseball, even when the Winterhawks won the Memorial Cup 3 different times. That was huge. That hockey community, people from all over, some of whom had probably never been to a Winterhawk game, they were excited about it. And I have friends who've never even been to an actual major league game who hang on every out of a Mariners game because baseball is that unique thing. It's like a 6 or 7 month soap opera. It just goes on and on and on, and you get to know the players and you get to know the people, and you have these ups and downs and all the things, and you live and die with them. Sports does that. And they just have a unique ability to do it. And they come in and grab your heart and sometimes pull it right out of your chest and stomp on it. But other times they caress your heart and make it feel good. But that's the fun of sports. You just don't know. And I'm telling you, it's a big deal. And we've seen it in soccer here with this town. There's that group of people who are big soccer fans and they go crazy over it. And baseball would be huge. Baseball would be huge.
So, crystal ball, Dwight, 10 years from now, 2035 in Portland, do you see Major League Baseball, Portland Trailblazers, both in the city or surrounding? Do you see it? Or are you glass half full, glass half empty type of thing?
Well, I'm going to say I'd see it. I do think it's inevitable at some point just because of market size. Somebody's going to come here one way or the other, whether it's expansion or whether it's another city disgruntled about its situation and wants to move here. I do think it'll happen. I do think at some point this area is going to wake up and realize that we haven't exactly been doing the right things to make Portland a viable, vibrant city.
I think that's one of the biggest struggles is that you've had different waves of immigration or whatever people coming into Portland over the last, call it 50 years and the 60 probably now. And there's different types of people come in any of these tranches of when Portland starts growing big time again. And my struggle, I guess, is that I don't see these type of people caring about the history of Portland or Oregon or sports as maybe the people that like you and me who grew up in town and loved pretty much everything about Portland, Oregon. I mean, for me, it was a great place to grow up and it was a lot to do with the sports culture. You didn't have big league teams, baseball, but you had the Beavers and you had a lot of great amateur baseball going on. But I guess, do you see the pushback from a lot of non-sports fans stymieing this thing? This was my real concern for the last 30 years, really.
Well, Brian, I'm so used to that because I've seen it over and over. There are always people. When Paul Allen said, I'm just going to build my own arena, I'm going to buy it, pay for it, do all that, people squawked because the city was going to give them $26 million just for the infrastructure and a few parking lots and all that. They were really upset that he was going to get anything for doing it. It's like, well, I'll never go in that building. I don't like basketball. Why should I pay for that? Well, it's been up there long enough now. I don't know if there's any able-bodied person in Portland who hasn't been in that arena for one thing or another. You don't like basketball? Well, how do you feel about hockey? How do you feel about the Eagles or the Rolling Stones? How do you feel about political speeches? How do you feel about, I mean, there have been so many things in that arena. It really doesn't belong to Paul Allen. Even before he sold it, it always has belonged to the city. It's not like he could back up a super truck and hitch up a trailer and pull that arena up to Seattle. It's here. It's Portland's. It's really, his name's on it, yeah. But Portland got a huge gift horse out of that arena. And if you want my opinion, the Blazers wouldn't be here now if he hadn't done that, because this city would not have gotten behind financing a new arena for them. Wouldn't have happened. They'd have said, stay in Memorial Coliseum, it's good enough. And it's obviously not good.
All right. Well, glass is half full, Dwight. I appreciate it. If not completely full, actually. Appreciate your time and glad to chat with you once more. Any final words where they can reach you at Substack or Twitter or any of that?
Columns at Substack, substack.com. Dwight Jaynes, I think would be the way to find it. Or just Google me. If you Google me somewhere, Jaynes is the last name. Google me and it'll somehow lead you over there.
All right. Well, sounds like a plan, Dwight. And thanks again.
My pleasure, Brian. Always a pleasure to talk sports with you. And good luck with the podcast.
Thanks. For more of our podcasts, head on over to briandoleary.com. And while you're over there, sign up for our email list. We'll send you daily emails. You can also find the link for our Substack page and various other resource pages we have. And that's at briandoleary.com.
From Portland's Memorial Coliseum, wherever you may be, Bill Shanley, good night, everybody.